Today is October 28th. We scheduled an open meeting via Zoom for 11:30. It's now 11:36. And we'll take a attendance. Barry
Present.
and Janet
Present.
and Ellie
Present.
and June present, and our fearless
Consultant.
consultant, architect Dan Barton is present.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. So I don't know if you have any business that you all want to cover ahead of time. But I'm also willing to just jump right in with a list of things I have.
Okay, I think
So,
we should go with you, Dan.
okay. So number one, while I was working on this over the last week and a half or so, I was looking for the plans that Tom Chalmers had sent us that June, you weren't able to open, but I was able to open. And I'm wondering if they're put onto the Dropbox site because I didn't see them there.
Well, I put, they're under the category of survey photos,
Okay, because I didn't see them
but they're
in here on
not
the survey.
there.
I don't think so. So that's why I was wondering if you still had the files. Otherwise, I definitely went in and looked at them before.
Mhm. I think
and
I sent them
it
to
was
you.
probably before I had a folder where I was saving things. So then I went back to his link, but his link has expired and I really didn't want to bother him and ask him to resend it if you had saved a copy. And I understand it's just a hard copy of the before and after of the site plan, but it would be useful.
Okay.
And so if you have it, it's great. If not, I'll reach out to Tom, but it's just a quick and dirty thing that I wanted to mention.
No, I still have the downloads, so I will,
Okay.
I'll try again.
Okay.
And I'll send them to you personally.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And then another one was I found a lot of information written in forms about the septic system, but never did I see a plan of the septic system.
Okay, that's in the survey folder.
Okay, but was there actually a plan? Because what I saw was the typical Title V type chart that lists everything.
No, there's a plan.
And the only plan that I saw though just had a dashed trapezoid where there's an easement.
Oh, well, maybe that's all it is.
Okay, so I was looking for one that shows me, here's where the line comes out. There's a D box, there's a tank, there's a leaching field. And maybe it doesn't exist, but
I thought it did show the leach field in the neighbor's driveway. That's in a different folder that I don't have right with me,
okay.
but I'm happy to go.
So these are not critical things, but as I was starting to go through Dropbox, I'm just trying to get my head around everything. And I'll jump into it in a moment. I'm very interested in that section of the site, and I'll show
Okay.
you why in a moment.
Okay,
Okay, then the next thing is that I think I probably told you all, Alyssa and I are taking a road trip. I'll be working, but I'll be remote, and we're actually driving south for the month of November, and then we'll be back early December. I didn't want that to slow down a critical path item, which is to get our structural engineer on board and engaged in helping us figure out what the best solution is. So I did connect with him. His name is Tom Lamb, L-A-M-B, and he's with TF Moran out of Bedford, New Hampshire. I work with Tom endlessly on many different types of projects, but very relevant to Bullard House. Tom also helped me with the old Poor Farm in Littleton that we worked on a couple of years back, which had a stone foundation and and we were actually turning that into a major assembly use. So we had, significant work, but as soon as I started discussing in detail with Tom Bullard House, what he said right off the bat is there are a lot of areas in the code that give you some relief when you're a house museum. So that was,
That's
music
good
to my
news.
music to my ears. I explained to him that, and I've already passed Tim's reports over to Tom, but I explained to him that I want to do right by Bullard House relative to structural repairs, because we don't want to invest money, if our infrastructure isn't good. But there were two components that were really critical to me. One was that if it's at all possible, not to be lifting and completely reconstructing the foundation the way that it had been discussed before. It's advantageous relative to the chimney, to our budget, to site work, etc. And I really wanted him to assess that. I told him that I went down to the basement with you all a couple weeks back, and I was optimistic that we could be doing repairs while I was down there. So I didn't see something that immediately was a huge concern. I'm obviously not the structural engineer. Number two, I told him, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, that our goal is to get as much bang for the buck and to be able to put our dollars into the preservation, restoration, or rehab of the spaces that people will use and touch and see. And that in the basement, if we needed to cobble together repairs in a way that weren't necessarily historically accurate, that we were okay with that our goal is to stabilize. We're not opening up a museum of construction history for old New England houses. We might somehow take parts of the basement, photographs of them, and use it as part of a display to the history and how things were done and what we've had to do to stabilize it. But I told him we were not worried about authenticity of construction technique in the basement. Does everyone agree with that? I mean, we've discussed this before. So this is all leading to the fact that I have tentatively scheduled Tom to meet with all of you at Bullard House on November the 17th at 10 a.m. And I'm hoping that will work. And I'm going to double check my calendar.
That's a Thursday.
It was a Thursday, that is correct.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do it, far enough into the month that it wasn't right at the beginning where things are a little crazy and before the holiday week.
Yep.
So if that works, what I'm going to do is June, just because you're my point person, and I'm always careful about not violating the open meeting law with communications that go back and forth. I'll just connect you and Tom in an email.
Okay.
Confirming that, we met today and that date is still good, and you all can work out details. It was my recollection that there is Wi-Fi at Bullard House, correct?
No,
No.
Okay, or is it at Old Town Hall, but maybe it works there?
it's at Town Hall. I don't know whether we can make it work there or not.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking is that I had suggested to Tom that as he's either walking through or reviewing some of his initial findings and thoughts while he's there, that you might FaceTime with me so that I can be a part of that.
Okay.
So
I could
we
do
can-
that from my phone, maybe.
Okay, we can figure out those logistics, and just I'd like to be able to hear some of what he says, if at all possible, because then if there's anything that we all wanted to explain further or talk through further as a group, we can. But anyways, if the 17th is good with you folks, I don't necessarily all have to be there, but I think it would be nice if you met him. He's a very approachable, great to work with engineer.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
No, you're welcome.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so that's hopefully a step forward that gets us some, assistance in determining what our best path forward is relative to structural repair. So with that, if I can take a little bit of time and share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, we're going to see all sorts of things here. All right.
Dan, can I just ask one question?
Absolutely.
Do you know that supplementary report that
that Tim
that
did.
yes, that exposed under the floor issues.
Yep.
Would that be included that day, or should we just deal with the foundation?
As far as I'm concerned, I want Tom to look at everything structural. So I already
Okay.
sent him that report.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I've already sent him some plans, some photographs, and the two reports that were done. Yeah. So, are you all seeing on your screen a Bullard House plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to refresh everyone as to what this is. This is the couple of pages that Barry drove over to our office and we scanned. And that was really architectural drawings that were done a while ago to design the ramp that's inside the building. So they don't have every detail on them. As you'll see on this particular floor plan, which is the first floor, the only windows that show up are the ones that are right near where the entry foyer was being proposed. And there aren't any shown in the front of the house or the side of the parlor, you know, where we know that they exist. And that's fine. But that's a little bit of a hole at the moment that when I started to dig into it, I realized, you know, was a hole.
Mhm.
This plan at the time, just so that everyone can get their bearings, let me make this really big. Here's Old Town Hall.
Mhm.
Bullard House is obviously, you know, the big plan in front of us. What was being proposed at this point in time, and this is something that I know I looked at when, you know, working in Old Town Hall, and we talked a while ago, is where I just put the blue square that we would develop an accessible parking space in this location that comes off of the access drive that goes up to the Old Town Hall little parking area and accessible ramp and storage building in the back. I don't particularly, nor did I ever love this solution, because you're coming in off of an angle, off of a hill. And in my opinion, you're really crowding. By the time you do an accessible parking space in the access zone next to it, you're really crowding where you want people to walk in and out of the building. And you've got the nose of a vehicle right outside the front of it. To me, it's not the ideal. Is it a viable, workable solution? Maybe. You know, at one point in time, looking at this image got us all thinking, well, why don't we put the accessible parking space up here, you know, at the Old Town Hall, and we'll do a ramp that goes from there and comes back down to here. And that would be our accessible pathway and our accessible parking. That's also, as we realize, complicated because of grading up above and down below. And, you know, potentially if there's an event going on at Old Town Hall and there's Bullard House, you know, maybe we want more than one accessible parking space. So making sense so far?
Yes.
I'll just stop for a second and ask, you know, were there any strong feelings or sentiments about this approach to begin with putting a parking space here?
The one thing I would add to that is that subsequent to when that plan was made,
Yeah.
the drive going up back was widened.
Yes.
And it really makes it much more difficult to fit that in there.
Yeah. So you're saying that in reality, Barry, we have something now that is significantly different from trying to change something.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah,
there we go.
it got more difficult when they widened the driveway, and that was before all the big work at the town hall.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
why we did come back with the ramp from up above in the plan for the town hall operation, and we would have had that, but that was the piece that was cut out due to cost and the
Yeah.
money we had. When we did
Yeah.
that project, we didn't finish that parking lot.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, this is leading to the thinking that I had as I was starting to look at the site. So, again, I don't think that this is the ideal. I also don't think it's necessarily a great way to service the building. If we're trying to have some event there and we want to bring things in and out, you know, to me is gets more complicated than necessary relative to the access to and from the old town hall, on top of what we need for Bullard. And it's in a relatively tight area on a hill where we also know and discussed on the site a few weeks back, we do need to spend some attention on getting proper drainage. So that's also in that area. So I took it a step further and started on a little site concept here. And Old Town Hall is in the lighter red, Bullard. And by the way, the plan says Bullard and Johnson. So I want to talk about that too. I'm assuming that's from when it was a two-family.
That's correct.
What I would like us to explore is on the driveway off of Central, near the driveway that's off of Central Street, that we actually develop two parking space size parking area there that we could do with a very nice finish. It doesn't have to be asphalt. I'd rather it not be stone dust because I think that's harder to maintain. But it's off to the side. It lets our yard all around the building closest to Old Town Hall stay pristine, and we work with it the way that we want to address drainage, maybe uncover some of the old foundation, use that as part of our outdoor display. And what I think is a strong possibility is that if we look, sorry, I'm just changing things. If we look at the existing situation of where the driveway is next door, it's relatively flat over there. So the only thing I see in the way is that there's one telephone pole that might need to be relocated, which is not a big deal. And we do that all the time on projects. So there's a little bit of a process to go through, but I think we've got the time to go through that process while we're doing other things. And there's a workaround. If we can't move the pole, it still works. The angle of it just changes. So back to my drawing here, you'll see that the telephone pole is right here. I just put a dot on it, but you'll also see that my concept still works. Grab the wrong line. If you go here, I just don't like it as much. So with that, what I see is a very strong possibility, and this is one of the reasons why we need Ross to give us the plan and get them engaged, is that I love that little patio and entrance that's over by the kitchen. I think that can be brought to life a little bit more. I think there could be a few stairs down from it, but I see a really wonderful pathway that as you're leaving this parking zone is just climbing with, not as a ramp, but just at 4%, wrapping the corner around the side, continuing to climb at 4%, and actually turning the rear door of Bullard House into the primary entrance that everyone uses from an accessibility perspective, as well as entering, if you're on foot, you can come from both directions. But I also love the fact that I see this zone in the shed, the workshop, whatever we want to call it, being a wonderful spot for kitchen and meeting space inside the building. And I love the idea that if we're having some sort of an event and it's before the public is arriving, we have this access for deliveries, for bringing things in and out, for displays, and without ever impacting anything that might be going on or is planned at the Old Town Hall. I also see that this forces bringing people to, you see my darker green circle in the back. I really want a beautiful New England garden in the back that's also usable outdoor space. And I want an accessible route getting to it so that it can be, officially used. I've got to get a better handle on what's all that's going on around these stone walls, which I've modified a little bit in the plan. But conceptually, the only concern I had here was making sure I could get my grades to work which I believe that we can. And two, understanding exactly what effect it has or doesn't have relative to our septic system. Because I know that there's something going on with the septic up in here and potentially down in this zone, because the shape that's on that easement is right here.
Yeah, the septic, the leach field is partially on our land where the automobile is
Yep,
and partially under the driveway next door.
right.
And that's exactly where the leach field is for our building.
Okay.
And the tank is in the area of where your red
Thanks.
circle that you just made
That-
is.
That's what I thought.
Just off the back corner of the house.
Yeah.
It's on our property, but it's right up against the property line
Right,
and
And-
parallel to it.
right.
It's a shallow tank because of ledge and stuff. And so
Right.
it's fairly expansive in dimension sideways.
So I'm gonna, without getting into the, you know, the potential hurdles here, conceptually, how does this feel to everyone?
One of the things I was thinking about was the Complete Streets program that the town
Yeah.
is working with. I don't know how familiar you are with that.
I am not. so
And so they're
it-
they're working to make it a more travelable by pedestrians town center.
Okay.
Partly for places like Bullard House and the town hall and the church and all of that. And so I just tossed that out because there will potentially be sidewalk, bike path somewhere in front of the Bullard House. And
Okay.
maybe we need to get chatting with them before too much time goes by.
Yeah, and Janet,
There is a committee for that, so.
yeah, thank you very much for just speaking about that, because it bears noting that the actual property line is quite a ways back from the street right away. So there is a zone. So you see that I've intentionally put the parking and loading zone
Mhm.
onto the Bullard House property, not onto the town right away property. That was very intentional. And to that point, you know, as I was starting to conceptualize this, you know, what I was recognizing is that we have crosswalks coming close to these areas. So it made sense that that was actually an access point that pedestrians could walk through, because next to an accessible parking space, that loading zone is in fact an area to walk or to use a wheelchair, and it's accessible. So if a crosswalk comes up to that, it works.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a great access point. And if there is a project to improve sidewalks, pedestrian access, you know, all around the village center, then that's exactly when you'd be looking at relocating telephone poles anyways. Or maybe, and I'm jumping a little ahead of myself, you know, I've actually had a conversation with somebody in town to look at taking the village center and getting the power underground anyways. So, but I'm jumping ahead to a different endeavor, but strong message, I wouldn't let a telephone pole deter us from a plan that we believe is workable long range, especially when we know we've got a fallback. And I feel programmatically this works really, really well. So, but let me hear a couple of comments from you, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit more.
I have one more, but I let someone else go ahead of me if they want.
Would we discuss this with our butter, the Von Gelderns, who have that driveway?
We certainly can, and we should at the right time, but at the
Right.
moment, we're not proposing anything here that isn't within the right of the town to do on its own property. Right? The septic system, is it shared?
No,
Right, I didn't think so.
The two systems were done at the same time.
Right,
The system for the house next door is also under their driveway. And
Yeah.
and the whole thing was done as one project because of the proximity of the two things, and they put some kind of a wall between the two underground.
Okay,
And, but the two leach fields are right plunko side by
that's
side.
what I remember you saying when we were out there, Barry. And
Yeah.
it, generally speaking, if it's designed properly, usually parking a vehicle on top of something like that is not an issue. You have to look at it. And for all we know, we need to do some upgrade and maintenance on this system to begin with. Especially because it hasn't been used in a long time, but I jumped too far ahead. Conceptually, though, I just want to hear any thoughts, poke holes, whatever in the idea, because it's dramatically different than what was out there before. I just feel as though it offers some real advantages and could be very sustainable, but
Dan, I'm not sure if this is conceptual or not, but the other thing that plays into it is that a lot of parking gets done behind the church on
Yep.
Woodward Ave, on that diagonal parking. And I don't think there's a crosswalk there at this point.
there is one that comes right to almost the front of Bullard House. And if I go here for a second, you see
Many
that?
people will park there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is one connection, which comes from the sidewalk in front of the church over to Bullard. But you're absolutely right that as you, there's a way for me to get over here, but just a second, I have to do it the other way. Yeah. So
And
the
it-
diagonal parking that's right here.
And it looks as though, well, you don't know Faith's house, so it doesn't help to say, but it looks like actually on Woodward Ave, before you get to that funny intersection stuff, there could maybe be a crosswalk. Yeah, somewhere there. That's Faith's house up on the left there.
Yeah, right.
That there might be
You
some-
could put a crosswalk right here.
Yeah,
We have had the conception of a crosswalk there before.
Yeah,
Okay.
And one of the problems we run into, because we run into it with the church, between the two church buildings over on Carter Street, is they don't want to put a crosswalk that close to an intersection that already has a crosswalk.
mhm. Yeah,
And so that's why they never put one in this location, even though some plans have called for it.
right.
but even putting a crosswalk halfway down that street, even if it's back farther, it's going to gather people who, particularly if they have a wheelchair or something and they need a place that isn't too crazy to try to look in all directions.
There could be one right here,
Have to be that close.
from the edge of the parking across diagonally, there could be one. But at the end of the day, what I was realizing is when somebody is here needing an accessible parking space, and Barry, you raised a great point that I hadn't even thought of, which is the widening of the driveway, which we had talked about a long, long time ago. But I don't want to see a vehicle parked right up against the corner of Bullard House. And what I love is that on the other side, it's already a lower elevation. So you're not disturbing the image of the house itself, with the green around it. So it just worked nicely.
The other piece, the piece that I'm concerned about on it is the fact that we're talking about being on Route 62. And back and
Oh, in terms of,
onto Route
Yeah.
62. Woodard Avenue is a low traffic
mhm,
street. And it's a low traffic street. It does have, when there's an event there, there'll be some cars going back and forth, but it's low traffic. The whole business of whether you even need a crosswalk there is partly simply ignored because it's a low traffic street.
mhm,
When you get onto Central Street, and Central Street and Linden Street that goes off to the left, it's a very high traffic street at hours
Yeah.
of the day. And bluntly, it's a dangerous place to be backing out of.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't disagree with that. And at the same time, I think we're not creating anything that's worse than the driveway that's right next door. If anything, we're a little closer to Woodward. Closer to that interchange. But
Well, we're into you're in the intersection, really.
yeah. So, and that's, sliding it to that alternative arrangement, that was avoiding the pole, could be advantageous in that regard, or angling it even towards Woodward. So that might be something that we should look at with a civil engineer at some point in time. But to me, it's the highest and best solution in terms of usability of our property. And I would also ask, is it likely that the times that we would be operating here might be when there's less commuter traffic? I don't know the answer to that.
Hard to say. I will say angling it could be good, because then we could regulate that anybody backing out of there has to go west.
Correct.
And then they're not backing across the street trying to go east, which would be much more dangerous.
Right.
I do like integrating that addition that with the patio, and going and having a feeling of the rear space. I do like that.
And coming from both sides.
Yes.
While leaving the entire front very pristine, because I think it should be. So any other thoughts? Janet, you said you had another one that you were
No, I
holding
snuck
off
it
on.
in there. I was just
Okay.
saying a crosswalk
Oh,
on Woodward
the
Avenue
crosswalk,
that could
yeah.
be right down in the mess there.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm just thinking now is, in terms of gardens, having people have a reason to walk behind the house
Yeah.
will allow us an opportunity to do more of that kind of thing.
And also you're beautifying the entire campus of the old town hall plus this, because why not take advantage of that?
Yeah.
Ellie, what about you? Any immediate thoughts?
I actually like it being moved to the south side of the house, because I think you're right that having that view with a car parked kind of smack into where people are kind of walking into the house is bad.
Right. And it doesn't mean we can't use that entrance.
Yeah, but I think it's better used, I think, as a pedestrian entrance and having kind of a flow from the old town hall to the Bullard House.
Yeah, I also love the idea that, as I said, you could be getting a delivery because you've got some event going on there, and you've got your own space to do it with a little bit of breathing room that gets you right into, an accessible pathway that might go right to the kitchen instead of through some other spaces. So let's zoom in for a second then.
What's the are you intending to bring the grade outside the kitchen door up to the level of the house?
Oh, I left my dark gray patio there, Barry, is exactly.
No,
where the patio-
I'm talking about the back door.
Oh, the back door. Yeah, my thinking was that where I have the two arrows, I'm starting to slope a little bit, and I'm playing around with the grading. We need to be looking at what happens where that infill area is, at the back of this shed. But yes, my plan was to be playing with the grade to get it up to that back doorway. And as I looked at let me see if I still have it open. Okay. As I looked at the civil plan, so I worked off of the old existing plan because it had grades and topography that I could play around with. There's a 75 line. Yeah, 75 line goes right through here, and then it picks up again right at this back corner. And it seemed to me that I had enough distance from my parking in two runs at 4% to get very close to where I think the first floor is. It's got to be confirmed, but I could also meander the path a little bit more. I can also take one part of it and turn it into an actual ramp. I was just trying to avoid doing that.
Yeah, we don't. It would be nice not to have a ramp and have to have rails.
Yeah.
If
Correct.
you
But
have a ramp, you gotta have rails, and that makes
Right.
it much more.
But I also knew that I could play around with wherever I set the parking could be at a slightly higher elevation too. So that also is a possibility. I could pick up a little bit, even if you're picking up a half a foot and you're still accessible, It's not that big of a concern, but it needs to be fleshed out from a civil design and engineering perspective. But conceptually, I liked what it did. And then I'll show you why. Because then, now I'm zooming into a plan. So if I'm coming in up above, I call this area where you first come in the welcoming foyer. It has this beautiful connection to the garden. The door can be left open because you're not on the busy street and you're, coming through whatever our little New England garden is. And I would likely shift the door to the bathroom to the other side of the bathroom, to here, so that you're not looking at a bathroom right when you walk in the door, and you're also not conflicting a door with another door, so that they're next to each other. I chose to put, bathroom fixtures diagonally. That works perfectly for my accessibility, but it makes it so that never, if the door is left open, can you walk past and look directly at a toilet, which no one really wants to do. I'm just picky about stuff like that. I don't envision Bullard being, like the Concord Museum, that I need a reception desk and a check-in area like that, because I think it's more community-based. But I love the idea that the second you walk in the door, that's straight in front of you is a place for check-in. Maybe there's some display of some items that, the mug that you can buy that says Bullard House or, Pride of Berlin, whatever, right in front of you, where you all have that long, wonderful, old, like I call it like a carriage house window or a transom window that's on the back of the building that looks out to the garden. I thought, oh man, let's just put a couple of rows of shaker pegs there, and kids that come in and everyone is hanging with it, but there's also baskets and there's, with name tags or whatever. It just, I look at this as just a really wonderful place to have a foyer. And in the shed beyond, what I would love is that we put your kitchenette kitchen space there, but smack dab in the middle of it is a wonderful old, it's an island, but maybe it's an old farm table island. And it's a place where you can have snacks out that people can circulate on all sides. It's a space that somebody who's working there or working on a project can sit and do the project. It's a place to actually have a historical commission meeting and just sit there, and immediately adjacent to have your coffee maker or microwave, drinks in a refrigerator. And it just feels welcoming to me. And I like that. And I also like the idea that, in today's modern home, really coming into the kitchen is coming into the heart of the home, right? Many people now don't even use a front door. They use the door that comes in, to the living space like that. So I liked that, we might do something similar at Bullard. But what this allowed us to do is, if you follow my orange pathway, then when you pass through this gate from your administrative kitchen, bath, closet area, and you come into our quote, museum and display space, you have a continuous path through Gallery 1, into the West Parlor, through the front hall, into the East front room, into the East back room, and out. And the path works beautifully. And the only exception to that path is if somebody has an accessibility need and we can't navigate that one step between the hall to the East front room, there's a switchback of just that distance to get to the ramp that you've already installed. So it works. What I also loved is that, at least for the time being, we're never going to be able to make the second floor accessible. What I do believe is that, we may be able to get some sort of a waiver to have some activity up there, but it can't be anything that we couldn't do on the first floor, right? Because we don't want to exclude anyone. If we do use that space, we're probably more apt to use the bottom right staircase, because it's much easier to navigate that staircase and get up. And I would put a video there that actually has, walking through the second floor, so that somebody who's not able to go up there, or if we're not letting anyone up there, we actually have a display that I can't stand it when you go to an old property. And I've thought about this for years and years when I go to Strawberry Bank, which is one of my favorite places. But you get to a stairwell and you see a ribbon across and you're not able to go up there. Well, could you at least show me what's up there? Right? So that I could see it. So I think that's a really nifty idea. And it's also a place to do display. And I consider the hall, the front hall here, as being permanent gallery. We've got some wall surfaces in there, which are great. And maybe that's where we put some permanent display, you know, photographs, memorabilia, etc., whereas things may move around in some of the other spaces. But it just came together in my mind that if our welcoming foyer was here, that this flows really beautifully. And doesn't mean that you can't come in, you know, where I have the arrow from the, you know, the accessible door that was put in, which isn't, you know, fully accessible yet. But couple of questions. So I'll stop there for a minute. Thoughts, comments, laugh me off and, you know, send me off the meeting.
I really like it.
It's simple, right?
It's the simplest way to deal with the space that we have.
And leave flexibility, June.
Yeah.
I love the back part. We've kind of sort of envisioned the front part for a long time, but all of a sudden the space that looks like it was about to fall off the house becomes really charming. It's charming. It's the little kitchen table and the pegs and the whole 9 yards. And the only thing, so that's the main entrance. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm thinking, is where we have people come in and out. And the other thing that I also rather like is that you know, we treat that area a little differently in terms of finishes and quality of space, you know, relative to insulation systems, et cetera, because we're not disturbing some of the, you know, authentic material that is definitely in some other spaces like the East Front Room, the West Parlor. And we could even at this gateway, if there are times of the year where we're doing some, you know, climate control in the house proper, I love the idea that the welcoming foyer kitchen bath area acts as a bit of an airlock. And, you know, the door could be open and closed, open and closed, open and closed, and you don't necessarily need to affect something that could be sensitive from a display perspective, humidity control, temperature control. That could really work nicely. So I was thinking that was the primary way that people come in. And I also liked the idea that we remove people from the busy streets to enter into Bullard House, that the pathway from either side going to the back is also part of the experience. There are things along it.
Dan, because I think that was my concern with being on the side, that you're coming in off the driveway for the Old Town Hall.
Right.
Which isn't really the best place for people to be walking.
Right. Right. But at the same time, if somebody is, I'm going to go back to my site plan for a sec, Ellie. If somebody, to, you know, the point of mentioned before, if somebody's parking over here at one of those diagonal parking spaces, then it's not an unreasonable pathway to walk up the hill a little bit and come to this entryway. But then there, I'd rather scoot around to the back and have everyone come in the same door, just as I envision that there would ever only be one single vehicle here. Although frankly, there's enough room that you could do two tandem and you're not quite in the road yet. But I would like, you know, this to also be considered a pedestrian pathway, especially if it's coming off of a sidewalk or crosswalk or whatever. But no, I agree with you. I've never loved the being on the incline of the slope coming up to Old Town Hall, and that's where you peel off. But let's face it, we all did it a couple of weeks ago when we met there, because that's the way we all walked up.
Do you see the parking in the two places on the front of the house there? Do you see that more as sort of a temporary parking? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how where does the accessibility come in? I mean, it certainly, which is the easier access for someone in a wheelchair, for example? The side door or the new parking part, the two-car thing? Because I'm just a little concerned that somebody coming
purpose-
to work or somebody coming pulls the two cars in there. They're there the whole time the place is open.
Yeah,
That
so,
almost is a non-parking area unless
y-
we.
yeah,
indicate it
if we're doing this properly,
Mhm.
there's a zone here. And it could be on the left or on the right, doesn't really matter, but I have it on the right because then a van could come in. This is really not a parking space. That's an access. It's intended that the person who needs the accessible parking space has a zone to unload and then use the accessible route. So I want to answer the question though, because it's a good question. I believe our distance is shorter if we're over here on the side, but I believe that the maneuverability and the usability is severely declined because of the limited space that we have and the fact that you're coming off of that other slope. So you've got a really awkward condition where that accessible parking space here meets the old town hall driveway. I think you've got a major grading problem, a complicated grading problem. I think it's far simpler here and it's just a little bit further of a distance. But I think that the distance is also part of the experience that everyone would be a part of, you know, looking into the back. So I don't ever envision two cars being parked here unless you all are there just for a commission meeting and you don't need the accessible parking space.
Now, which one are you talking about right now?
Or you're servicing
Over there, okay, I see your
over
arrow.
here, or you're servicing the building for something, right? If you're
When the
getting
buil-
ready for an event,
When the building is open,
yeah,
that is only a
an
handicap
accessible parking.
space.
That is
That's
correct.
only a handicap space. It's not for
Eh.
general public use at all.
No, and it would be labeled that way as well. The reality, folks, is that unless you build a parking lot that has more than, I think it's 7 or 8 spaces, you're not required to put in an accessible parking space. We're doing it because we know that the population that we want to come to this may need it. So if we're going to develop any space, we're going to make sure it's an accessible space. At the same time, you know, we could label that space, you know, for somebody who needs to be close, instead of, you know, putting the handicap symbol on it. But that's, you know, we're getting into, you know, specifics that we can iron out later. But, you know, I agree with Barry 100%. My thinking was that if the building is open to the public, that is a designated accessible parking space for somebody who needs it. Period, end of sentence. Anyone else is finding a parking space diagonally over at the church or up at town hall or along the street or whatever, and they're walking to the building.
I'm not thrilled. And I had a concept previously years ago of having a door on the back side of the house that was the way
Yep.
in. But for the general public, having the main entrance way around back, it's like, where do I go? Where do I go? And you walk up to the place and it's like, it's great. How do you get in there? So, I mean, signage and all that you use in order to
Mhm.
get people to the right place, but it's kind of too bad. It's one of the reasons we ended up with the door where we put it, was that it was going to be visible from the street, so you could see, oh, there's a place to go.
Mhm.
That's not insurmountable.
I thought of the same thing, Barry, just for an FYI. That was a little concern of mine coming in the back door.
Yeah.
Don't you think if we have walkways that are clearly evident and well maintained, that will kind of be self-evident as to where you should be going?
Now, you still have to have signage that makes it really clear where to go.
Yeah, I think that I respect the comment very much. I do think that the scale of the property that we're dealing with and some of the constraints that, the physical constraints we have, I think it can be dealt with effectively. I don't think there need be any confusion. I mean, it's simple as, a planter here. So when you come into this path, it's clear which direction you go. The one off the accessible parking space, it's very clear where you're headed in that direction. Especially if you're on an accessible route, you're not going to be going up those stairs to the kitchen. And that's not going to look like a main door anyways. That's going to look like a carriage house kind of a door. It's a bit more closed off.
Also, it's a communications issue too. I mean,
Yeah,
you need to, I mean, well, let's see, there was an event that we had at the town hall in February. And I think what I did was to put a big pink sign. It was a Valentine thing. So I put a big pink sign on the front entrance to the town hall with an arrow and just saying, don't forget, come around to the accessible
entrance.
entrance. Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
we would need to work that. Yeah.
yeah, and also people within the community, once they're there once, know it.
And those are the people coming, let's face it, they're not coming from New York to see the Bullard House,
Right. And one could argue that where the door is placed actually relates it better to the old town hall, where that main entrance is, because it's the same door that's used.
And we put a couple benches out there in the back gardens so that people start to realize it's also a place to just be. And then come right in that door. I like the idea that there'll be places to hang coats and things there, which would detract quite a bit if they were on the other side from the displays.
Yeah, agreed. And I also think it's easy, wayfinding is fairly simple in terms is putting the monument that says welcome and has, an arrow that you're going that way or that way. We could pick the whole house up and turn it around 180 degrees, but I don't think that that's going to be the right approach. So listen, sit with it for a while. It's, as I'm thinking about it, and as I said, as I started thinking about the layout of the interior, it made sense to me. If any of you have been to Powers Gallery in Acton, which is a great art gallery in an old house, when we developed that space, the main entrance is off to the rear. The difference there is that we have a parking lot, and the parking lot comes in on the side of the building.
Yeah.
So to go to the back, you're entering the back from the side, if that makes sense. But here, unfortunately, I just went to the wrong one. We just have this very awkward, tight site on a hill. It is what it is. And I can't have a parking lot, but I think that when you're up at Old Town Hall, you'll be looking down into an area that's very intentionally set up to be the entrance. In terms of the garden, furniture, patio, etc. So, let's face it, if you walk up to this door here, it's a small wooden sign on the door that says, entrance that way.
Around this way.
Right?
We need to, I assume one of the things Ross is going to do is develop a plan of the current existing situation, because the parking lot up back does not represent any of the plans that we have, because it was done as a temporary makeshift deal. And the original planned parking lot took more of our backyard at the Bullard House.
That is correct.
If they ever go to develop that makes that more difficult in that area.
And I drew a diagonal line about where I think it is, looking at an aerial photo, but I agree. Yes, that's exactly what we asked Ross to do. We wanted to understand our boundaries now that the town hall work had been done. And there's some information missing around here proper to begin with on that survey plan. I would, before we run out of time, I've got a 1 o'clock, so I've got to stop by 12:45 to be able to grab a bite to eat and be ready. But I have a couple of questions. Because of furniture and things that were in the way, I was never able to get down to all of the closets in this area when I was there with you all a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
I'm going to draw boxes here. Here and here. Is this just all storage?
at the present time, yes, the one near the word hall is actually not near, it's about half as deep. Was an error on the old plans. And the other thing extends up to it. And
This
it's
one
actually,
here.
yeah, it's actually 2 closets with, there's 2 doors into it. One that's
Okay.
right near the front, and then one that's back toward the middle of it.
Okay, just so that you know, I should have said this completely up front. I developed a floor plan by working on top of the old plan
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
that you had created. So I bet it's accurate within a few inches, but it is not, to the half an inch. And it's fine for this level of planning. Okay, and then
the old plan was not right in that regard.
I found it, and I also saw that the design for the ramp versus the ramp that was built were different, because I was looking between my photographs and that's
Slightly,
fine.
yeah.
Okay. Is there concern about having any plumbing in this back area relative to frost protection?
Yeah, at the present time, we have a sort of a barrier under the building, roughly where the at the left-hand end of the check-in display thing.
Yep.
There's a barrier underneath there, and the place to the right is pretty much okay for frost-free. The place to the left, there's not enough warmth in there necessarily to protect that. If we were to do this, we'd have to insulate underneath there and make
Right,
sure that
that's
that
what I-
was warmer.
That's
It
what I
should-
figured.
That could be doable, but
Yeah.
as of right now, it's not set up that way.
Okay. And then I pointed out before, but no one needs to do anything about it at the moment, but we do need to get window sizes and locations somewhat accurate on here. Because at some point I would like to draw some elevations, because the package that you have at the moment only has partial elevations. It does not have all of it. And I would like to be able to draw that up and have it be genuine.
I do have a better one for the one at the right, this right side elevation, because the window placement was changed there.
Okay,
After we put that door in, the window was centered on the space to the right. And other than that, it's pretty much that same. Yeah.
this one here?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
okay. And what I thought we would do, once we really have a handle on, the way we're laying things out, I pulled it up here. I thought that a lot of people don't understand when they look at a floor plan exactly, how
Yeah.
it's laid out. So what I thought we could do at some point, which would help with marketing
Yeah,
and help with some of our grant applications,
I don't know.
I thought that we could do, and I just pulled it up from a project we're working on.
Whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
We could do an axonometric plan like this, so
Yeah.
that we're essentially slicing it and looking right down into the Bullard House.
Yeah.
And I thought that could be, a nifty way to show it to people what our plan is.
yeah,
Or do some sort of a video walkthrough. But anyways, I'll stop sharing for a second and come back and see all of your faces. That's what I've played with since we last met, to get our efforts started.
It's very exciting.
Isn't it exciting? So,
Is there anything I can do to convince Ross to move along? I sent another email this week, but no reply.
I think that the only thing is to say that, we want to be continuing to do our planning, because we're getting ready for, funding applications, we want to be able to do this effectively over the winter, and we don't want bad weather to get in the way of you going out to do what you need to do.
there you go.
Right?
Okay, I'll
So,
make
you
a
know,
call.
and the reality here is that they're not starting from scratch.
Yeah,
They have data and a
Oh,
file
yeah.
that
Oh,
we're
yeah.
looking for them to update.
Yeah.
Right?
okay,
So, so my feeling is, I don't think it's worth it. I'll send you PDFs of what we looked at today, so you all can doodle around and think about it a little bit further. But let's not invest time in layout until we get the background information that we need and we get the structural information. So I think that our next touch point really is right around when Tom Lamb comes out on the 17th.
okay.
Now, that makes sense to me, but
That's fine. Dan, in the business of space use and occupation and stuff.
Yeah.
Is it all right to just use this sense of what we use each room for, or do you really want square footage numbers for those things or something?
I don't think I need square footage numbers at all, Barry. I just
Okay.
wanted to,
All right.
so to that point, actually, I'm really glad you just asked that question because, let me go back to my screen for a second here.
Well, obviously, the plan that you've given us means we're using some spaces differently than we'd planned, so.
Exactly. Are you okay with the way I've labeled things? In terms of east front, east back, west parlor, gallery? I took that off of,
Yeah, well,
we,
we've done this as entrance room and entrance, now we're gonna move the entrance room out back, so.
right, so, I labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in here so that you could take the number and then tell me, 4 is going to be called whatever.
Okay,
But no, I don't think I need the square footages. What I really wanted is to understand the programming that we thought might happen in that space. Like Barry, you and I, when we were walking around the other
Yeah,
day,
I've
said,
got-
the parlor
yeah.
should be set up with furniture that is appropriate to that room. It's a beautiful space. And then, maybe it doesn't get moved around as much as some of the other areas. So, yeah, I think that that's a great task for you folks, is to work on that programming. I already knew we were going to have a bathroom, we were going to have a kitchenette. I knew I wanted some sort of a foyer space that had some flexibility to it. I wasn't going to pull out the stairs. Oh, that was one of my other questions. Did this chimney get dropped?
It's still in there. We've kind of planned to take it out, but we
Okay.
haven't got, it's only down to the attic floor at this point, so.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I thought that it might still be there too.
Yeah, it's still there, but we've sort of had it in the plan to take it out because it was. There had once been a big chimney in that location, an
Yeah.
18th century chimney, and this is just not much use. Takes up space that we could use for something else.
Absolutely. So in terms of,
And I would also add that out in the kitchen, you've got the
Yep.
old chimney there.
yeah,
That can be eliminated. That's out. That's out. That's been taken down below the floor level.
okay, in the kitchen,
It-
the
yeah,
one right here?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
the old chimney and that has been taken down to the floor level.
Okay,
So that can be removed.
okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
So in just to wrap up in a couple minutes for action items, June, you're gonna just send me, if you could, what you downloaded from Tom.
Okay,
No rush, nothing urgent, but if I have it, then I'll make sure to save it and send it back to you in a form where you can look at it.
oh, that'd be great.
The you
The
folks are gonna
septic.
be, what's that?
I'll verify that the septic shows the septic plan.
Yeah,
What
and
if it
maybe I just glossed over it when I went into the Dropbox, but I did go into the Dropbox a couple of times a few days ago.
Oh,
Well,
The everyone's good with Tom on the 17th, so I'm gonna send an email, June, and connect you up with Tom Lamb.
okay,
And then hopefully at some point that while he's there, we can all connect on a video chat. Or cell phone call, whatever makes sense. And you folks in the meantime, think about continuing to make a list of programming and spend some time thinking about what we talked about today.
Sounds good. Moving along, all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I feel like we're rolling along.
Good. That was the goal.
Yeah.
I did make a couple of changes on our schedule that were in your email, June, that I noted. They're on my copy of it. I can download that to the Dropbox, but it was nothing, significant. But-
Just one, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was just the one.
I feel like I went in and edited two things, but I did it a while ago while I was responding to your email. So I
Yeah,
think that's done.
yeah, no, I think your follow-up was good. I think. you
So,
answered everything you needed.
Unless there's any other question for me, I'll drop off and let you all continue to meet. But it's good to see everyone, and thank you all for your understanding and flexibility. Should I have had to cancel till Monday, but
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. and
talk to you
good-
soon.
Yeah, good luck with all your,
Best wishes with that situation.
yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. You stay well and have a good weekend. Good to see
You
everyone.
too.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Well, that gave you something to think about.
Yeah,
It's interesting because the concept of what he's playing with in the old kitchen and annex there is stuff that we had, some of it was to be done with the old kitchen, but some of it was to be done with in the entrance room. And the way we were going to use the entrance room was very similar to that whole business. I've always had in mind that we'd have the drop leaf table there in front of the window in the back of the entrance room that you could then pull out and put chairs around it if you wanted to hold a little meeting or something in the entrance room when it's not open general public. A variety of different things that the uses, a lot of the uses he's talking about for that back part are there in the front. We do, however, lose our place to stage for exhibits that we might have used the annex for. However, we could do that upstairs.
Well, aren't we
We could take a
gaining,
room upstairs to do that in instead, which is perfectly fine.
aren't we gaining the entrance room though?
Yeah, we're getting more, we will have more exhibit space available in the entrance room.
Yeah.
Exactly
So
how.
which thing were you thinking we were losing? What were we losing?
sort of a workspace in the annex.
Using the annex for workspace to
Oh,
set
yeah.
up exhibits and to, work on
Oh,
things. that we
I
can-
see what you mean by set up exhibits. I got it. Yeah.
And it does make sense that, it does make sense not to use first floor space for that because of accessibility and use second floor space for it instead, because
Good
then
point.
the issue of whether people can see it or not isn't an issue.
Yeah.
We can't lose the ballroom as
I
an
know,
exhibit space, though.
right.
We can't do that. That's
Yeah.
important to be exhibit space. And I have no idea but what we can have, limited numbers of people at a time up there and have exhibits there. And again, as he was talking, and as we've always known, either a video or a book with pictures or whatever of what's up there for people who are in a wheelchair. But
Yeah.
those are, those are good concepts. I tend to think we want the two big front rooms upstairs for exhibit spaces somehow. And we'll have to see what we can get for a waiver on that from the Architectural Access Board.
Now, when you say exhibit space, do you mean, are you including creating a period room as an exhibit?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Not just the exhibits behind glass type thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
My concept has always been that we'd have two rooms that were set up as domestic rooms, one being the parlor.
Mhm.
And it could be set up with different furniture for different periods and stuff, but it would be a domestic room. And the other being the east chamber, the upstairs room toward the town hall, which would be set up as a bed chamber. And again, we've got 4 or 5 different bedsteads, different periods, and some furniture to go with some of those,
Mhm.
so that we could set that up and, that way we'd have a couple of rooms that said, yes, this was a residential house,
Now,
even though
would it
most of
be,
the place would be exhibits otherwise.
would it be sensible to have a couple of the other rooms that you didn't just mention, potentially designed, or whatever you'd say, with the paper and the woodwork and all of that, so that they could go either direction? They could either become another period room if we were doing something where it seemed like a third one or a fourth one, fifth one, whatever it would be great, or it could be an exhibit hall type thing.
Yeah,
It seems
I-
too bad to only have 4 rooms that we could really use as period rooms.
well, one of the things is, and again, we got to go back to our vision and mission. Our purpose is the history of the town.
Right.
What we exist for is the history of the town, not the history of the Bullet House. And, or, you go to historic houses and, okay, well, this is all about the family that lived here and stuff. We'll have bits of that because that's part of how we interpret the house. But the main purpose is to tell the history of the town. And therefore, most of the space should be exhibit space that we can do things about schools, things about organizations, things about families, all kinds of different things. And sometimes that might also involve having one of the rooms put together with that family's furniture or something. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah,
But
I
you're not
definitely
thinking-
agree with you that you should have things so you can use them for multiple purposes.
Yeah, and the
Flexibility.
you're not thinking then of having that ever furnished as the period room? It would just be an exhibit space,
What?
the ballroom? Or
Oh,
the,
that would be an exhibit space. Yeah. I
so you
would,
would never show it as though there were a meeting set up to happen.
I would say not. I won't say you couldn't do that, but if you do that, you might just as well have a picture, because if you go in there, you're not going to have anything to do in there except say, okay, that's what it looked like, and then go on to the next room.
Well,
Um,
you could use it for small programming. I mean, it would have the flavor of the meeting. of
I
the
would
whole-
not, I would not do that because of the access.
Hmm.
If I was doing small programming, I do it downstairs because of access. The problem with gathering people up in the ballroom is that you still don't have it accessible for
Yeah,
people
you
that
gotta be
can't do the
careful.
stairs. And there are people that aren't going to do the stairs that aren't in a wheelchair.
Right. Right. No, I
Um,
see.
At what point would we need to discuss altering the stairway that's,
Well, that's another question. And that's another, I mean, we can talk to Dan about that.
Which one are you talking about? Which stairway?
the ones that's the safest right now, not the little one.
The
Yeah,
one toward the town hall.
yeah.
The other
Whereas
one
the
is a
other one has no
historic
railing or
artifact.
anything.
The other one is a historic artifact because it was the stairway that originally served the ballroom.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to, we wouldn't want to put up a railing or anything like that to get up there?
Oh, I won't say that we wouldn't put a rail on it, but we aren't gonna greatly change it because it's part of the story of the house that's really integral and important, I think.
Yeah.
And
No,
I think that we do have to maintain some level of safety because it's a pretty narrow, steep stairway. Like even if you're going to use it, I think you'd want to put in a rail.
Oh, yeah.
the little stairway that goes up to
Yeah.
the ballroom. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always intended to put a rail on it. Exactly what kind of a rail is another matter, but yes,
Yeah.
I've always intended to put a rail on it.
Yeah.
The other one is gonna have to have rails really both sides as much as possible.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that we knew that something had to give there.
But I don't know
Janet?
that it makes any sense to, and maybe this is being kind of crass, but why would we want to spend the money and do the effort to make it accessible? It doesn't seem like it's really necessary to do that. And don't we have enough stuff
More for
to
the
be able to
staff, I
put
think.
downstairs? I don't know. Guys, I think it's going to be a significant expense to ever try to make it accessible.
And which stairway are you?
Are you,
working
are you talking about just safety or?
No, I'm talking about true accessibility. We're never going to get there, right?
No,
Oh,
I
for the
don't think
second
so.
floor,
An-
no,
An
that's right.
elevator,
Which stairway are we talking about right now?
the wider one.
The,
The one in the corner or the
Yes.
one
The
in
one
the?
in the corner, the
The
one
one
in
in
the
the
corner.
corner, yeah.
We're never gonna make the upstairs accessible. Dan's comment right along has been, unless someday you put in an elevator.
And the only
And-
thing I would say is that it's people our age that are taking care of the place, that are carrying things up and down, that are setting up exhibits. So we need to look at the safety of the staff that might be using it with a box in their hand and so forth. That's something I've been concerned about, particularly with the center stair. I don't use that too much anymore. That the center set of stairs is that we are in there. It's a little risky sometimes. I get nervous about myself. personally.
Exactly, which is why I
When I'm
said, I
carrying
think,
something with two hands and I'm using the stairs. So, there's no railing to run your elbow up to give you that third leg, And so I do think we should always remember that we're going to have staff that will be needing to go upstairs. So we can't have it completely the way it is now, I don't think.
well, he even mentioned,
The corner stairway with all the winders in it and the difference in width of the stairs, downstairs as opposed to upstairs and stuff, is really a nightmare, I think. And I think that I would love to see them rebuilt in some way. And I'll try to make a couple of sketches so that other people can understand what I'm talking about. But I think we need a better stairway, period, than either one of the two we've got.
Okay, good. I think the
And
middle.
I think the place to put it is where the corner stairway is to rebuild that a bit there. The one in the middle is a real artifact, because what used to happen is people came in the front door, came down the hall and went 180 degrees and up the stairs to get into the ballroom. And the door that is the door into the ballroom today was originally right at the top of the stairs. You got to the top of the stairs and there was a door that opened. And so I would like not to change that one so much.
Barry, the stairs that are down cellar that look like they were some kind of a continuation of the set of stairs up above, is that true that those were in any way connected, or were the ones that are still remaining down cellar in the center of the house, are those totally not part of the ones?
It was really a separate thing because there was no cellar under the part where the other stairs are.
Yeah.
So they couldn't
So,
put
yeah,
the stairs
okay.
under the other stairs.
Yeah.
And what was there was, what's now that closet was not very deep. So you went down those stairs, but you didn't have full headroom all the way down. You have to crouch around going down the stairs because it would be low overhead in the middle of the stairway.
Mhm. Now, all
Um,
those little closet things in the center where, if you open the front door and
Mhm.
walked in that space, they seem a little random to me. Are those authentic?
Those are random.
What?
they're
Those are
random.
I still
They-
couldn't hear Barry's comment.
Random.
Those are random.
Oh, random. Those are random. Okay, thank you.
The closet that was where the stairs were going down cellar is where the stairs were going down cellar, and at some point they just floored it over
Okay,
and used it as a closet and left the stairs under it.
Yeah.
The other two were put in there at some later time, perhaps using paneling that came from the stairs that were originally in the corner of the house, the corner stairs that
Mhm.
were old stairs that were very steep. And but maybe from someplace else, but they're old boards that somebody made into 2 closets and stuck in there.
Mhm.
And probably in the 1940 period, but we don't know for sure.
Mhm.
But those were a later addition. And sometime when we're in there, I'll show you that a little bit more in person, so you'll understand how it used to be.
Um, unless we have more that we want to say about Dan's new plan that we might adopt. We need to come up with a November meeting because Veterans Day, our scheduled meeting falls on Veterans Day, and so we can't meet.
On the 11th?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
can we come back to Thursday?
you want to do the 10th? I can do the 10th.
I'm open.
I'm
think
open
it's-
as well.
I think
Alright.
that's all right.
And you want to do the morning in person?
Yeah,
So 10 o'clock is still good?
yeah.
Okay.
Was Dan going to put those drawings of his in the Dropbox, do you know?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
I'll reach out again today to Ross. I guess I can cite funding and that we're ready, that that it's a piece we have to have now or
Maybe we
or as
should
soon as possible.
But well,
Maybe we should each take turns calling him.
no, I think you need to make the point that Dan said. We'd like you to do it now so that you won't get fouled up
Okay,
with
the weather, that's
winter
right.
weather.
The
And that's the
weather.
reason to get it done, because we need that material to work on over
We
the
can't
winter.
move forward.
I thought that was a very good way for him to phrase that.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And the
Weather.
fact that we can't move forward, that's what we're really waiting on.
Yeah, we want to move forward during the winter with that information.
Mhm.
I wonder if I can screen share that septic plan.
What do you
Uh,
think he's waiting for? What's his name? Ken? No, what's his name? The man you're talked to.
Do you have the septic plan on your computer?
Yep.
Okay, let me make you a co-host, and then you should be able to screen share and bring it up.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to go down at screen share and click on that and get so you can share from anything from your computer.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, that's not it. Is that all we've got?
What?
I thought there was. All right, let me look for something else.
What you're looking for would have been something you got at the Board of Health office.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. There's another septic. Where's my septic? Oh, yeah.
I'm disappearing for a second and I'll be right back.
Mhm.
That's not it. No, we don't. Um, I guess he's right. We don't really. No. That's doesn't really show anything.
Okay.
I mean, that sewer easement is. Oh. That's it. It's a little trapezoid. Do you see it?
No, we're not sharing. You
Oh,
haven't
oh,
shared it.
Okay, sorry. How do I, oh, share, okay.
Yeah,
Now,
there you
that's
go.
it. It's a, yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't show anything.
No, that's just the property easement.
Sewer easement. So that's in their driveway.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'll go back to the Board of Health and see if there's something I missed.
There's some place that showed at least what the areas were for the septic.
Yeah,
system.
I remember.
And I've seen it, but I don't know where it is now, and I don't even know where to look. This would be the thing you could get from the Registry of Deeds, so I can't get it from there. But someplace there is something, because I saw it at the time we were doing this. I should,
There is,
maybe I'll
there is a,
talk to,
yeah,
I'll talk to Paul Wheeler, see if he's got it in his file.
okay, well, I think it's there. I must have,
Yeah,
somehow I didn't download it or
I'll
upload it.
I'll try to catch Paul in the office sometime and see if it's, see if he's got it,
Okay,
because they put the thing in.
okay. All right, I'll chase that some more.
I'm really troubled with the idea of having handicapped people having to back out into Route 62 at an intersection.
I think that's legitimate to think about.
That's a brutal thing. On the other hand, if that parking is used only for that purpose, it's probably not going to cause a lot of trouble. But that's going to be an interesting issue to take to other town boards and stuff, putting a parking space and access there. And there's a crosswalk right there too. Oh my God.
Well, and that whole area is a tough one. I always get nervous when I'm coming up Woodward Avenue toward the crazy intersection, and then I see, this driveway and that one, and wait a minute, where am I supposed to go? And I mean, I've been doing this for years, but I still all of a sudden say, who do I have to watch? And
well, it works simply because Woodward Avenue is a low traffic area.
Is that?
It's Daisy, yeah.
It's not a problem, June. I just
Well,
wanted to know who it was.
Yeah, no, it's
We need a
her.
little screen for her.
She's, oh, Yeah. Okay, so the other thing I just wanted to mention is, should we meet, or should some of us meet with the players who are gonna establish a blog?
Yes, I've been writing up a few things myself, but I think we should do that.
Now,
Who would be on that list?
well, if you want to include your Lindsay, who is willing to do some artistic rendering,
Maybe
J-
James?
and
I mean,
James definitely, because he is the tech end of it.
Yeah,
And you also, because you've written some content,
yeah,
and anybody else who wants to be involved. But you and James and Lindsay,
yeah.
if you think she's got the time to
Yeah,
meet.
she seems to have a lot of time. She's eager, she
Yeah.
likes doing these things, so.
Would you want to meet when you come sometime soon, when you come back from
Yeah,
Vermont?
yeah, yeah.
Could you set that up?
I'll set that up.
Okay.
Set up a time, and if it's a time others can come.
Yeah,
or
let
whatever,
us
we will.
know.
Yeah,
And,
And I think, we do have the town website. I mean, we have a place that we can put stuff on there. And
well,
we
James has confirmed that there wouldn't be a problem with blogging.
Right.
Right.
That's what it's for, I guess, And-
I will say that right now, that the commission information, as limited as it is not up to date.
Yeah.
And
so-
neither is the society information.
Yeah. And those are the two that we know we have, but I also think Lindsay is interested in making a couple of posters. And so there's
posters
that.
for
too.
what?
Well-
Just, things that could go maybe like at 19 Carter but I think the content on the posters would just be some kind of I don't know if it's an announcement that we're working on the Bullard House, and we have a what is the thing called, the sale that's coming up that we were going to have some stuff in.
Oh, the yard
Yard
sale?
sale?
Yeah, the yard sale. But I think it was more not a specific poster, but just a design for a poster.
Oh,
Getting started on it now, so that the artwork would all be in the board or whatever, however it would be designed. And then when we're ready to actually,
and you have some space on it that for content.
right. And then for a while, maybe kind of use the same design, just so people get used to what that means, that this is something that's going to be a recurring information.
Well, it should be on the blog. I mean,
And I can give you the good picture of the Bullard House back when we painted it the last time.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. I like that one where it's white and it's got all the trees around it too. It'd be kind of fun to just put the date on it so people know it's not. Yeah. So, yes, let's do that. I mean, I'm sort of stumbling over the answers to some of the
Yeah.
questions because we haven't had a meeting and we
yeah.
haven't really got
It's the blog that I'm really would like to move forward on.
yeah, just so that page isn't always empty or the same thing that's been on forever. Yeah. Well,
And
in
also,
all fairness to
Do you want
everybody,
to, you could include, you could include Rebecca too.
yeah,
She's a
Oh, yeah.
hard one to include because of her schedule, but
yeah.
but maybe she could Zoom in with you or something. Because,
Or even just keep her informed as to what we're,
yeah, well, she is the only social media person that's out there for us right now. So she needs to be, she's our Facebook admin,
mhm.
and she does the posting. So she needs to be, she needs to be part of the team.
Yeah,
Whether or not she can meet with you to begin with, maybe that's not that important,
Yeah.
but she should.
Well,
she
some of it is your purpose of this, and if you're really talking the bullet house, that's not so much the thing she's doing up to this point.
well, the other thing is, I don't know how much you want the, why can I never remember what you call them? You know, the weekly things you guys do.
Oh, History Matters.
Yeah, thank you. History Matters. Whenever I want to say it, it never comes to me. The History Matters. I don't know how much you want people to know about those. It's
I've just done we've done 3 sessions the last 3 weeks,
yeah,
just on the Bullard House.
yeah, yeah. And you know, do you want to get them out there? Do you want to sometimes talk about those in the blog? Maybe not.
Sure.
If you don't want a big
Sure,
group.
we can I mean, Barry just did the 3rd one, which
Yeah.
was about the interior and some other, related aspects.
Yeah.
How to use the rooms and what kind of exhibits could go in different places
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
forth,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Right. And I also think at some point, I think a lot of these things, I've been sort of thinking them a little bit as a serial, so that maybe for the first 4 or so or 5, we would just talk about the project itself and the people who are on the commission and, sort of introduce them to what's happening for people who haven't got a clue. And then maybe at some point switch over to a little bit of, maybe a string of them that has some of the background history of the house, for example. Or we might switch more immediately to where we're at and how we're proceeding. 4 or 5 blogs about how you go about doing a project like this. And then maybe move then into another string with just about the history of the house and some of the people that lived in it. I mean,
And those things can be broken up too.
and they can even be broken up instead of having
And
what I was trying to-
intersperse one with the other
yeah,
week by week kind of
yeah.
thing.
And the reason that I was thinking of writing them in a string is it makes it much easier for the writer who's writing the blog to kind
Yeah.
of stick with the same idea and come up with 5 short bits that can be
Yeah.
put on one after the other. Because where blogs usually fall down is it just takes so much time to write them. But if you do it sort of thematically, it's like you're writing one big one, but you're breaking it down. And then you've got 5 weeks before you have to have the next one ready.
Yeah.
That's kind of what
Okay.
happens with blogs. That's where
Um,
they fail usually, is people just don't have the time to write the content. So, but you could also write a couple and still intersperse them. You can do it I don't think it matters with a blog. Blogs are they're informal writing. They're not supposed to be, things you worked forever to make sure it came out perfectly. They're a little more casual, which is what's nice about them.
Well, it's you're bringing everybody along.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And we have
So-
some, and Barry, I could see you, writing up 100 blogs if you broke everything down into, little pieces. But if you know what you want your theme to be or how you want to approach it, and then just say, go ahead, write a few, and we'll throw them up next for a while. But I do also like your idea of once we get a little advance on some of these, to be able to intersperse different
Well,
aspects.
interspersing it is good because different people are interested in different things. And
Yeah.
some people would enjoy reading the history and wouldn't look at the other stuff so much. And if they know it could be history anytime, they'll take a look
Yeah.
each time.
Well,
And,
I don't know if you want to get in on that, Barry, when we get together on the blog, because my sense is that a lot of what's going to interest them is going to be the stories that the house can tell.
Oh, yeah.
And you would end up probably writing some of those if you were willing, only because you have the factual information. So I don't know if you want to sit with us when we first get together and talk about it.
Well, as I said, make your date that you can work, and if it works for me, I'll come through.
Okay.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, that's all right, because you'll catch on
Yeah,
very.
we'll do it another time.
The other, my final thing is what we've been doing all along, but we need to step it up. Maybe not as a formal meeting that I have to post, but we do need to work in the Bullard House.
Oh, yeah, We gotta
And
get back to
Decem-
working
yeah.
on that stuff.
Yeah,
and
we gotta.
December's gonna be a tough month to do a lot, just because of people's obligations to their families and to the holidays. And also, Marty is gonna have his other knee replaced on December 7th. So I really feel that November is my time to
Yeah.
do as much as I can.
And that
Um,
involves figuring out, making a final, figuring on the storage.
Well, I just, my head is, I just want to organize what's in there so we can move it out. I kind of have a hands-on approach. I do have 2 volunteers that are going to come next Wednesday afternoon when Barry and I do the curatorial hours. And they are going to help me with complete the dish project that I've started, which
Yeah.
2 of us worked on yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yes, it was in the morning. Yeah.
Ellie, I was going to ask you, one of the things that I didn't see on the things that you guys did, that you and Jane did, measuring thing, is I didn't see measurements or even a rough estimate. If you have in your head, without even looking at the stuff again, what's the general size of the side tables? I do not need an exact measurement of every side table. And what was the general size of the chairs? Because if we're going to talk about the space that we need for storage, there were no numbers with it. It was just sort of an inventory
Oh.
for some of that.
I don't
And I
know.
didn't know if you
Yeah,
ran
I
out of
think that
time.
we listed the ones that were large. We didn't really list
Yeah.
the ones that were small because we thought they
Because
could
what I
kind of
need to know
fit
now,
in like under a big table or get stacked on top of each other. I don't know. We can work on that as well.
I mean, just, you
I
don't
mean,
have to.
some of the tables were as small as like a foot by a foot square, and some of them were a little bit bigger, but none of them were terribly large. I think we were
Right.
more concerned about the 2 organs and the Empire sofa and
Right, but we
some
still
of
have
the
to have
the
still have
curio
to have,
chests.
we still have to have a figure for the totality of all those little tables, of all those little chairs, and just and just look at a couple and say, you know what? If I averaged out, I'm serious about this. This is all we need. If I averaged out the size, I'd say, 3 by 3 for the table. Some were bigger, some were smaller, that kind of thing, to get some sense. And I mean, I could even go over there probably and do that without having done the measuring that you guys did. But just so that, because what we're going to try to do is to say, okay, we'll stack some of these, we'll just do that by our judgments. The average was this, so that we can have a rough estimate of some of those, what if we put all those smaller pieces in a room, how big would the room need to be? And you can cut the tables in half by saying, we'd stack these at least 2 high, all of them, and that kind of thing. And you'd be better probably equipped to do that because you guys have looked at every single piece up there. I can do it if you'd prefer not to, but if you're willing to just kind of give, so that we have, we need measurements is what we need.
Well, volume.
I think the list was left there at the Bullard House, so I can work on that.
I have the list, actually.
Oh, did
So
you
next time
pick
we
it
go
up?
to the,
Did you pick
Oh.
it up?
I picked it up. Yeah, I think, or you handed it to me or something. I don't remember which. But I have it because I was thinking, I thought the measurements might be on it and therefore I was going to just add things up. But I just said, I'll just hang on to this and give it to Ellie. So maybe next time we go over there and work, but then we can maybe come up with.
Maybe you
I
2
wonder
can go
too.
together and make your own time to just feel okay about that
Yeah,
piece.
yeah. And then the other thing is, and along those lines, I got the impression from something you said, June, that Kristen is concerned about the molds that might be in the walls from that leakage that they had. I mean, they've
it
taken
was
care of
something
the
that
leak.
something that Fred Cummings
right.
raised to her.
We
Yeah.
have to resolve that. If they know that they're going to say, no, you can't use that because it's not safe to the artifacts, then we need to know that now. If they are saying, well, yeah, if you just use those rooms and maybe close off the part that had the mold in it or something, I don't know. I think we need to resolve.
Don't know, they don't know anything about the mold. That's just a thing out of the.
Okay, so where
And-
do
and
we stand?
Secondly, as I said before, if it's not heated above 50 degrees, mold's not going to be doing anything. And so in the wintertime, it's going to knock it down. And
But do
we're
they have-
talking about something for a temporary period.
But the question is, do they have the authority in the end to say yes or no? And if we may be convinced that it's not a problem, but can we convince them that it's not a problem? Because otherwise, if they really still feel that way, it doesn't matter what we think or what we know. It's what they feel is the best decision. So I think that's why I have not met with Kristen to talk with her, but I understood that she was concerned about that. And does that mean that some of us should at least meet with her and iron it out? Because otherwise,
I'll
we
see
don't
if I-
know what the
I'll
answer
see
is.
if I can chat with her about it. I know that Fred brought that issue up. But honestly and truly, I don't see mold around there. And if I don't see any, I can't believe it's going to be that much of an issue for our stuff for a temporary
Yeah.
period. Mold is largely a problem for people. And we're not
Well-
talking about people, we're talking about stuff.
And I think the moisture that is in the air is measurable. And I don't think we're going to find that there's a lot of stuff in the air. And that maybe if we were willing to do is it a hydrometer? What is it that you use? Whatever
I
you
can-
use to
I
measure
can
it.
take the hygrometer over there and see what it'll read.
Yeah, why don't you see that? And that might just be enough to say, and we can close off the room. Was the leak mostly in the big room?
Yeah,
So
Yeah, but
that
we
would be where
We
the,
need to use the big room for all this furniture.
what, say that again?
We need to use the big room
Oh.
for our furniture.
Yeah,
All the furniture we've got in the bullet house, it really needs to go in the big room.
yeah. But some of the things that are up there may not need climate control, and if we moved them out, we might be able to say that we have enough room. I don't know. But in any case, yeah, do you want to talk to them and just see where they stand?
well, she's been away all week and I
was-
don't have an answer even for the capital plan request
Yeah.
form that's due on Monday. And
I was wondering if Barry, if we could pass that off to Barry and you could, well, you had said that you would talk to them about it.
Well, about the question of whether the mold issue, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
willing
yeah,
to
about the
chat
mold.
about that.
I've
Um,
talked to her twice. I talked to her about our storage problems when I had the actual
Yes,
appointment
yeah.
with her. And then I stopped in one day when I was working at the assessor office. And because she never got back to me when I sent an actual email to follow up about our concern, she mentioned this mold thing in person as part of a conversation she had with Fred Cummings.
Of course, we have the ongoing problem that they still haven't repaired the roof. The town appropriated the money to do the roof and they still haven't done it.
Oh, I thought so it still leaks?
No,
It
it's
is-
got a tarp.
They put a tarp over it.
Oh.
It's not leaking currently, at least that anything we can see. But
I think we're at the point where if they really know how they feel about it and they're gonna say, no, we need to know that right now.
that's
And
true.
then it's just gonna slow down the whole project
Yeah.
because we're gonna have
Yeah.
to put some money into
Yeah.
storage. But if that's the way it is, let's find out right now because.
Well, do you want me to, Barry, do you want to make an appointment for the two of us to meet with her? Or do you want to meet with her by yourself?
I thought I'd try to go in and just do it sometime. Lots of times you can just go in and do it.
Do what? Oh, you mean
Talk
not make an
about something.
appointment? Yeah,
Yeah,
just see if she's in her office. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she probably shuts the door because I
And
would.
At a time she's not overly committed on
Yeah.
talking to somebody else, chances
Could
are
you-
we could,
Could you
Well,
use the thermometer?
just to broach the subject and see what she's got in her head about it.
Could you do the hydrometer check first so that we
Oh,
have
oh,
something?
yeah, I can take the hygrometer over there and try that, see what that's
Well,
doing.
our structural engineer is gonna come on the 17th of November.
Yeah,
So if you're gonna talk to her, you know, on the fly, I hope it's next week.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
we
I'm
don't
getting
really know.
concerned that our time is very compressed now.
Yes, yes, yeah. So we want to get through this, and then we just bite the bullet and say, okay, so some of our $50,000 that we hope we'll keep getting each year is going to have to go to storage. I mean, there's nothing else we can do.
I don't think you're gonna spend CPA money on storage.
No, I don't know.
Oh,
It's not,
that's CPA money.
yeah,
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
right.
not our money. Don't think it's our money. It's money for historic preservation. It's
I know
not
that.
our money.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that, I mean, if nobody else comes forward and applies for it, then we could, I mean, we would have to choose.
We still have to apply for it, and it
Yeah.
still has to meet,
Yeah.
it still has
And
to
if
meet
they
the
knew that
standards
we
under
couldn't-
CPA, and I don't think storage will do that.
No, they may not, but the other point is that then they have to face, the people involved with making decisions have to face the fact that we can't start the project until we have enough money to pay for storage. I mean,
Well,
it's that simple. And I think we
do
can
have,
talk to them like that, because they may not see the other side of it, that if we can't use CPA money, then we don't have the funds to begin this project.
well, we have other money. We have
Yeah.
mitigation funding that could be used, but that has to go through the select board. They have to authorize
Yeah.
the use of that and for what it's used. And there'll be a little bit of a hurdle there for storage. The other way we could fund paying for storage would be asking our society to help us out.
Now, did you?
If we have to.
Have you talked to CPA to know that they really wouldn't let us use it that way? If it was what was going to
It
get
has
the
to go
project
through
done?
town meeting. I mean, I'm not sure I'm capable of getting up at town meeting and advocating for CPA money to be used for a pod.
Stop.
You know,
Ask somebody who you know, who knows what CPA funds are for, whether the CPA funds could be used for storage.
I can do that. I will do
Why
that.
don't you do that
And
before we talk further?
the only reason I bring this up is that I think we have to be prepared to point out that I want people to know what the consequences are of our not being able to have storage come out of the money that we have. People need to understand, let's not be running around town saying, nobody ever does anything, they haven't even started, that it's just the way the system is set up. You know, I mean, that's all I'm saying is let's not,
Oh, I agree with
let's not
that.
hold back from people
No.
how important it is for us to find some reasonably priced storage and some money to pay for it. You know, anyway, I'll find out. I know who to ask whether the money can go for that.
Yeah, I think that's the quick thing to do, because
Yeah.
I doubt that CPA money could be used for something like storage.
Yeah, maybe not.
So,
Kinda silly not to
but
be able
we
to.
find out, see what Tim thinks.
All right, I will. He
okay,
might be
so
listening right now.
so
huh?
I have some action items that
Oh my God.
we've already talked about, and Barry has agreed to talk this over with Kristen, hopefully this coming week. And Janet is going to, when she gets back from,
I'm just gone for a few days, but.
yeah, when you get back, if you would pull together a meeting with the social media people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Oh,
moved,
that was the action item, okay.
so moved.
I move. Oh, did we move together? Barry?
A second?
Second,
A
I'll
second.
second. Barry can first, I'll second.
Okay,
If
we
you
need
wanna
a
be
roll,
second,
we need a
Ally.
roll call vote because we're on Zoom. So Barry
All right,
and Janet
Aye.
and Ellie
Aye.
and June, I, meeting adjourned.